All right, welcome everyone to Ask Bucky Unfiltered. My name is Janan and I'm one of the special project interns at Campus and Visitor Relations, or CAVR. Today I'm excited to have some people from the McBurney Disability Resource Center, so I'll have them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Awesome. Hi, Janan. Hi, everyone. I'm Mari Magler. I am one of the Assistant Deans in Student Affairs, and I am Director of the McBurney Disability Resource Center.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. I'm an access consultant with the McBurney Center. I've been in that role for about 4 years. I also went to school here as an undergraduate and for 2 graduate degrees.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Matkin. I am also an access consultant and have been for about a year at McBurney. Similar to Mike, I also went to UW for my undergrad and graduate degree.
Awesome. To get us started today, do you want to just talk about what the McBurney Center does and what services you offer for our students?
Definitely. I'll get us started on this one. But the McBurney Disability Resource Center, which we often just refer to as the McBurney Center, is the office on campus for students with disabilities. And so primarily we're focusing on academic related accommodations for students with disabilities. But also our office really is here to ensure access and accessibility and inclusion for folks with disabilities. So we think about disability as part of an individual's social identity and part of the broader diversity of campus. And so we try to enter into those conversations on campus as well whenever we can.
We work with students with a variety of diagnoses or disability types. We have a lot of students that are affiliated with our office, close to 3,000 at this point, and our numbers have actually been growing in the past several years. The populations really can vary. A lot of our students, or some of the bigger groups, are students with ADHD, students with psychological disabilities like anxiety and depression, and then also students with chronic health diagnoses. But of course, we work with students with all types of diagnoses. So students who are blind or low vision, deaf and hard of hearing, mobility disabilities, students with traumatic brain injury, learning disabilities like with impairments in reading or otherwise. So there's really a variety of students that we work with, many different types of disabilities. And we generally are trying to ensure that students have equal access, and in large part, we're focusing on what happens in the classroom. So we're thinking about accommodations that will level the playing field or give equal access. Some of the more common ones we recommend and approve for students would be, say, modifying testing conditions. So extending the amount of time a student has to take an exam, so maybe time and a half. Testing in a smaller group so there are fewer students in the room, fewer distractions, that sort of stuff. But we'll also work with students who might have impacts that make it difficult to take good notes. So we'll provide recording technologies and a variety of other accommodations like that. On occasion, we'll provide peer note-taking services. So there's a variety of accommodations like that. Another very common one we provide is what we call our flexibility letter. And that's where students who will have periodic flare-ups, conditions that will have periodic flare-ups and really impact their ability to participate either for a day or two or maybe even a little bit longer than that. If they show up at really inconvenient times, we provide a letter that helps the student work with their instructor to come up with a plan for what to do if those periodic flare-ups are really at inconvenient times. It gets a little more complicated than that, but this is a little bit about what we do and what some of those accommodations look like.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Mari and Mike. I know that I remember learning about the McBurney Center the first couple weeks on campus, and one of the things I'd even heard about before I started was the note-taking opportunities. So that's something that I've enjoyed for myself, and the fact that I know that I'm helping my peers, but also it holds me accountable to, like, I have to go to class and make sure I'm taking good notes. So I think it's nice that we are using like the student community to be able to help each other out that way.
For sure. And I think, one of the common things that we hear from both students and I think faculty and staff around campus is just when people hear the word or see the word disability, I think certain things come to mind. And so what we want to just remind students is, as Mike indicated, the population of students that we work with is very broad and diverse. And so if you have any questions about whether you might qualify for support from our office, we would encourage folks to just, come on in and meet with someone. I guess we'll do that virtually for the most part this semester still, but have a conversation with someone in the center to kind of talk through your situation if you have any questions or are wondering, because you may think that you're not eligible, but you may be. And so that's something that we're happy to talk through.
Yeah, that's good to hear. In terms of like accessing those resources, how can admitted students go about doing that? And then also prospective students looking at these resources, are they able to do that while they're still looking at UW?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So if you are a prospective student, meaning you haven't been admitted to UW yet, but want to just hear about what resources we have available, I would recommend heading to our website, which is mcburney.wisc.edu. On that website, there is a tab on the top left side titled Students. And underneath that, there is a sub-tab that is titled Thinking About UW. And that is where you can sign up to chat with somebody from our team one-on-one, just to, ask questions about what services we have, ask those questions that Mari mentioned, like, am I eligible? Is this something that's worth pursuing? We have prospective student sessions typically every Friday morning. They're now virtually, but they used to be in our office. So that's a great way just to kind of dive in a little bit to see what is available. If you are a current student interested in, browsing these resources or even just applying for resources, under the same tab, under the Students tab on our website, there's a sub-tab called Apply for Accommodations. And that kind of goes through the step-by-step process that is required for kind of getting the accommodations started. So the first step is filling out an application on our website, as well as providing us documentation of your diagnoses or disabilities that are relevant for you. After that, you will be invited to meet with an access consultant such as myself or Mike, and we kind of have that more interactive process where we talk through, what the impact is that you're experiencing and kind of talk through what accommodations you would be eligible for. So, yeah.
Awesome.
It sounds like a fair amount of steps, but we try to make it streamlined and easy to do. And if you don't have your documentation ready yet, it's still okay to reach out. We'll work with you while you're in that process of getting that figured out.
Yeah, that's good to know. And we'll make sure with this video to link their website in the description, but it's just mcburney.wisc.edu. So you all started kind of talking about it. I know Mari and Caitlin briefly mentioned it, but can we talk more about how your programs and resources have kind of adapted to this COVID-19 pandemic, and also how you're preparing for our hybrid classroom system starting this fall?
For sure. It's funny, as we hit last spring when everybody was going home, right, and switching to this virtual engagement process, it wasn't too hard of a switch for our office. We've always been available. Our access consultants have always been able to do and regularly do have meetings with students by phone or video. So that's something that we just now are doing exclusively, right, instead of just as needed. I think for our office specifically, we will continue to do that as much as possible. But we will have some open office hours, certainly during the week, so that if somebody needs an in-person conversation, whether it's a training or they need to pick up equipment, or they don't have a space, maybe a confidential space, maybe somebody's living in a res hall and has a roommate and they don't have a confidential space to have a conversation, we'll figure out definitely some in-person options for folks. And I think then just across campus, I feel like our office has been engaged with all areas of campus, trying to figure out what are all of the potential access barriers that we're experiencing with the switch to remote instruction, and just remote engagement, right, with the variety of services. How do students get involved, period, with student life and with classes and everything. So I think that our work continues in that way. We always work kind of on an individualized and interactive process with folks. So we'll work with students to figure out what barriers might be in front of them. And then we'll look at, we'll do some brainstorming. We'll talk about ways to address those barriers. So a lot of brainstorming, which is one of the, I think, probably my favorite parts of the job, right? You're always kind of engaging in that process to figure out, like, how can we problem solve? How can we address this barrier that might exist?
Yeah, I think that being able to adapt is a good thing, and it's nice to see like your office did already have some of those kind of online options in place, kind of made the transition a little bit easier. One final question I have is if you all each wanted to share, but what are you each most looking forward to this academic year working with McBurney?
Well, for me, I'm just excited to get back on campus. Working remotely, I'm thankful to still be able to work, so I'm grateful to still have a job, but I very much like being on campus, kind of being in the, around all the activity, that sort of thing. It'll be a limited capacity, and I certainly understand that, but just getting back on campus is something I'm looking forward to.
I think for me, just the energy that happens during the academic year that we miss over the summer, and now it feels like it's been even longer since we all went home sort of in March, right? So I think that there's just the students, when the students are around, whether it's still engaging, some will be virtual, some will be in person, but that energy that they bring is something that I look forward to every year.
Yeah, I would agree with Mari and Mike. I think just being back on campus with the students and also our colleagues that we have been working with remotely for so long, it'll be nice just to see somebody in person and just kind of, have those informal chats that you always have in the office. I miss that too.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I can agree with all of you on that. Even with the campus and visitor relations office, we're thinking about how can we come back like a little bit to campus. So I do miss like just being able to walk over to my coworker's desk and just have a conversation, where now it's all like, let's set up a meeting to do things. But awesome. Thank you all for joining me today. It was really great to hear the resources that the McBurney Disability Resource Center offers. And just adding on to Ask Bucky Unfiltered, these webcasts are posted each Sunday. So thank you all again for joining me.
Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you.